welcome to this edition of Kevin's Garage. Of course, my attempt as a novice to build a Factory 5 Roadster. And this week it's another one of those areas where, as a novice, I was maybe a little bit apprehensive as to what it would entail. And this week it's all about the fuel system and fuel lines. So firstly, let me just talk through in general what you actually are given or provided by Factory 5, and I'll talk about, I'm actually using a Blueprint engine, a 302, and I can tell you what Blueprint provided as part of that package, and then I'll talk to you about what I'm going to do based on some discussions with some friends of mine and looking at the Factory 5 forum. So firstly, let's talk about in ethos what you're actually trying to do. So a few weeks ago we fitted the fuel tank. So from the fuel tank you have a pickup, which actually, here's the filter. The fuel is drawn through here via a pump, and then you have a pump and a filter via the fuel lines, goes to the engine, and then there's a return that brings the fuel that isn't used back into the fuel tank. So from Factory 5 you get this perfectly good pickup. You get these straight fuel lines. These are 5/16 of an inch. Obviously the bigger ones compared to the brake lines that I fitted just a couple of weeks ago. And then you also get a filter from Factory 5 and various other pipes and fittings to use. Then from Blueprint, what I actually got was an inline pump. So the idea here is that this fits lower, somewhere on the car, lower than the fuel tank. Then that passes through this filter, so it goes that way. So not sure which way round this is, but anyway, into the pump, into the filter, and then to the engine. And of course, all this is linked together through various fuel lines, some rubber and some with this sort of copper alloy, and all this sort of equipment that you have. And what I also got from Blueprint was this sort of steel mesh fuel line as an alternative. So the idea being it's a little bit more flexible, a little easier to actually install. So that was the whole sort of idea. And if you remember, I sort of bored out these lines, and and that was the process I was going to go through. Then I had some discussions, and I saw a video from my friend Jim, who I completed the build school or car camp with, and he showed me a much more straightforward and simple system, which I think for a novice such as I am is not only a better system, but so much easier to install. So he showed me this pickup, again exactly the same format as we were talking about from Factory 5, but this is from a company called Quantum Fuel Systems, and it definitely feels more sturdy, a little bit bigger, better quality. You've got two lines which are both a larger bore in terms of, so you have the same amount of pressure going to the engine as coming back from the engine. And even simpler, it's a the pump actually goes in the tank, so it's an in-tank pump system, which is much easier to install, and obviously is in situ straight away, so it takes away a lot of that messing around that I would have had to do with that external pump. So that's the way that we're going to go. This is from Mk4. So again, thanks to Jim for that. What Jim also showed me, which is sort of the latest in braided lines, which I think looks, let's be honest, it just looks a lot cooler, is better protected, is certainly more flexible, and again probably a lot easier to install for a novice than any of the other lines that I showed you earlier. And this is from a company called Evil Energy, which again, thanks to Jim. They also make a filter, which I just thought that I picked it up at the same time. That was pretty straightforward. These were just ordered through Amazon, and then all of the various fittings that you needed were also included in the box. I also got some spare fittings with the pump itself. So through all of those fittings, I actually have enough to do the entire car. Probably a bit of overkill in terms of the length. I went with 26 foot, so I've got basically 13 foot for each line. As I've not done this before, I've got a little bit of spare in case I make any mistakes. And so basically I'm just going to cut this in half and then use a 13 foot length for both sides, so I can just leave it in the engine bay, and then whatever fittings I need later on, I'll work out what that is. So that's my general approach. That's what I'm going to do, and of course I will show you on the car as I go through the various stages. So let's go and have a look and start to fit it. Okay, so the first job was to put the quantum pickup back in. So this is like a little awkward, and so I'm sort of loath to pull it back out again. But basically it's sort of similar to when I put it in the tank the first time. You have to sort of, you know, finagle it around, move it a little bit, sort of right to left, and it only really fits in one point. So if you see you've got the two outputs, they sort of tend to face to the right. So now I'll just put the clip back in. I'd already put the right, and there's the seal in. I just needed to pop it down a bit and pop it in, but yeah, it's nicely sealed. And while we're looking at it, because now the two outputs are exactly the same size, I've just marked them. So this one, E, is to the engine and R is return. Just makes it a little easier for identifying moving forward. All right, so let's move on to the next piece. Okay, so let's talk about how you put the connections onto the PTFE fuel line. You'll see I've just put a right angle on one. That's actually going to go to the tank, and this is actually the short piece which goes to the fuel filter, which I'll show you in a moment. So the first thing to do is that obviously you've cut the line. I won't bore you with that. It's actually fairly straightforward. Just need to take it nice and slow. I used a grinder. The instructions which come in the pack say that you can use a hacksaw, but actually the grinder was fine as long as you keep everything steady. I put mine in the vise and it seemed to go reasonably well. So the first thing that I've been doing is maybe just with a pair of you know, usual sort of wire clippers, just clipping away a little bit of the metal. So as you remember from earlier on, you've got like an inner core, which is the plastic pipe. Then you've got a metal sort of lattice sort of layer around that, and then the PTFE is on the outside. So let's just take the fitting. You just unscrew the end off the fitting. This is the piece that actually goes onto the pipe, so just put that on because you need that in a moment. And then when you go inside, you'll see you've got this little sort of silvery ferrule type of thing, and that actually fits into the end over the top of the plastic but inside the metal. So the recommendation is, and this is a little awkward to show you at this angle, is you just take a little screwdriver and you just a little flathead, and what you do is you're just trying to tease away the piece of the metal so that you can get that sort of ferrule inside and underneath both the metal and the PTFE. So it actually fits between the metal and the plastic pipe. So just sort of tease that away until you've got like a little gap. Okay, like so. You see that now? Then what you do is you take a little bit of your favorite sort of lubricant or oil, not too much. I always tend to put too much WD-40 on, and then you just take that little ferrule, as I said earlier. You're basically trying to tease it around the plastic, but underneath the metal. And the recommendation is you just take something solid and push it against. So I'm using the workbench here, and you can sort of hear it sort of crunch as it goes into position. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll just do one more. Right, so you can see it sort of sits like that, and if you look inside you should be able to see that now the plastic is pushed up against that rim. Okay, so what you do now, and this is another tip from my friend Jim, so I think I'll need to get him into the video, is just to stop the PTFE fraying, just really melt the ends with a blade, just to seal those up a little bit. So that's that. Then what you do is you take the inside piece here, again put a little bit of lubricant on that, and then what you're doing is you're basically pushing that into the plastic. And the technique it recommends is basically as if you're sort of screwing something in, and you'll see that when you do it, you'll suddenly feel it go. Suddenly it just goes. So there you are. It's now in. And then what you do is you just take your main body and again put a little bit of not half a bucket full like I just put on, but just a little bit of lubricant, and then you can do up the threads. Now then just take a couple of wrenches, obviously one to hold the base, and then the other one, oh, this nut here, using the wrong nuts, just to obviously don't do it like this, do it much more elegantly, but you get the idea. And then you just tighten that up. So the recommendation is not to do it too tight. That's still got to go a couple of turns. Let me just do that here while we're, there you go, that's better. But there should still be a gap, as you can see, just still a little bit of a gap. And that's nicely sealed up. All right, so that's our link between the fuel tank and the filter. So I'm just going to put that in now, and then we'll come back and have a quick look at what the loose fitting looks like, and then we'll get it finished up. All right. Okay, so the fuel lines are in. So let's just take a closer look. So obviously looking at the gas tank here, so you can see the pickup unit. Looks good. Just a reminder again to label your two lines as they're both the same size. R for return and E for engine, but obviously you can use whatever you like. Quite like the fittings. I decided to, it looked fairly neat to have like a 90-degree and then maybe like a 60-degree for the return. Again, keep them quite nice and smooth. So just follow up by the chassis. And then if I just move over here, you can see I went with, as well as the Evil Energy lines, I went with the Evil Energy pump as well. I mean, sorry, a filter rather, not pump. You can see I had to make a little bracket there to fit it onto the chassis. That's pretty sort of solid. Managed to get, I think, 6 rivets in there, so that's not going anywhere. Got to do a little bit of work to do with the top rivet on the top right. I couldn't quite get my drill in, so if anything I should have maybe put the bracket just maybe an inch or two over on the left hand side, but I was just trying to keep the lines nice and smooth, but it went in pretty straightforward, so that is good. It was maybe a little bigger than I anticipated, but that's fine, whatever works for you, and this certainly looks fine from my perspective. You can see with the lines you get these additional sort of attachments to link the two lines together, so that sort of neatened it up. And then just have a quick look underneath. You can see just followed it down here by down the chassis, behind the passenger footbox, and then if you look underneath, I think I can see, there you go, just a few clips just to keep everything together and nice and neat. And then I'll just come over here. You can see then the lines just come out into the engine bay, and I've just left them sort of long and fairly loose at this stage, and obviously I can cut them to size and do whatever I need when I work out what the attachments to the engine will be. So that was fine, just a couple of extra things that you can do at this stage. So the other thing you do is obviously you've got the air vent here on the fuel tank. You do get from Factory 5 a number of lengths of 1/4 inch rubber fuel line. So one is used here just to attach it fairly loosely at this stage, just to the upper part of the trunk, part of the chassis. All credit to my friend Jim, who pointed out you can get little filters just to make the end look a little neater. This is just a little motorbike fuel filter. So that's that one. At the same time, I think Factory 5 recommends you do it later, but I did it now, and again, all credit to Jim for pointing out this is a good time. I actually used the 3-link solid axle, so it was a good time to put the air vent on that one as well. This one you do leave really loose at this stage because obviously you want the axle to be able to move up and down. So again, I've just put the little motorbike filter on the end, then just obviously put a little zip tie on it for now, and that's that. All right, so I think I'll just summarize and then we'll move on. Okay, so that's it for this edition of Kevin's Garage. I think I'm comfortable now in terms of the fuel lines. I will do one final check of all of the fittings before I put any fuel in, but I think I'm good to go, and I think I had quite a few good key learnings through the experience. I think really it's just a matter of taking your time, planning it out. When the filter wasn't quite what I expected, just take the time to think about, okay, well, where's it going to fit now, and what does that need to look like? And it went pretty smoothly overall. So pretty pleased with where we came to, and thanks again to my friend Jim for really making a great contribution to this episode with all the tips that he gave me. All right, so what are we going to do next week? Well, we're staying with lines. This time we're going to fit the hydraulic clutch. All right, so we'll see you next time. In the meantime, if you are enjoying this novice's journey to build his Factory 5 Roadster, then please keep liking and subscribing. All right, that's it. Take care.